Jetta Goudal was a popular silent leading lady in the 1920s, but after starring in just 2 talkies, she retired. Why? Join me as I investigate. Jetta Goudal was born as Julie Gaudaket in Amsterdam in 1891 to Wolf and Gertrude Gaudaket, both of whom were Jewish. While her parents passed beforehand, sadly, nearly all of Jetta's other relatives, including her sister, perished in the Holocaust in the 1940s. As a young woman, she acted on the stage in Europe and immigrated to the USA after World War I, renaming herself Jetta Goudal and claiming that she was born in Paris, probably to keep herself from facing anti-Semitism. In 1921, Jetta appeared in 2 plays on Broadway. First, The Hero, which co-starred Robert Ames, and then The Elton Case. While in New York, Jetta met motion picture director Sidney Olcott, who cast her as a small but memorable part in his 1922 film Timothy's Quest. You can see Jetta here briefly acting up a storm as she and her family are thrown out of a store. Jetta then had her big break playing a major supporting role in The Bright Shawl in 1923 at First National, which starred Richard Barthelmess and Dorothy Gish. She made a big impression in the film, with many movie magazines pointing out her beauty and her talent. After supporting George Arliss and Alice Joyce in The Green Goddess later that year, Jetta was signed by Paramount and promoted to major stardom. But Paramount was determined to capitalize on her exotic diva-like characters in both of those films and promote her as such in real life. According to Agatha Frymas, Paramount churned out countless articles in movie magazines about Jetta's diva-like behavior, including one in Photoplay where she refused to stay in a certain hotel because it looked too old lady to her. Apparently, Paramount was attempting to make Jetta appear more royal and European, and thus more temperamental, despite the fact that she was not really off-screen and wasn't really happy about this persona they were giving her. But she moved on and did as she was told. Nevertheless, Jetta starred in 3 critical and commercial hits at Paramount between 1924 and 1925. Open All Night, which survived and saw her give a delightful comedic performance as the bored, beautiful Leah, girlfriend to the professional cyclist, who eventually makes trouble for Adolphe Menjou and Viola Dana. Then Jetta starred in The Spaniard with Ricardo Cortez before starring in perhaps her most acclaimed critical film, Salome of the Tenements in 1925. It was a moving film that told the story of poor Jewish immigrants trying to make their way in the Lower East Side in Manhattan, a story that I'm sure resonated with Jetta. However, Paramount was still promoting Jetta as its temperamental diva star and now began making claims about her being unprofessional on the set. She apparently was late and stopped production and caused financial loss due to her antics. In actuality, Jetta was probably a consummate professional, did her research, and therefore had many opinions about her characters, her costumes, her scenes, etc. But at that time, female stars were not expected to have opinions, let alone voice them. In 1925, Paramount let her go, for which she sued them for breach of contract. But later that year, Jetta signed with Cecil B. DeMille and quickly starred with Joseph Schildkraut in the interesting romantic fantasy The Road to Yesterday, in which a newlywed couple are haunted by their past life selves. She then starred in the critical and commercial smash hit 3 Faces East in 1926, and subsequently starred in several more hits for DeMille over the next few years, becoming one of his biggest stars. Some of these hits included Paris at Midnight, White Gold, which survives, and The Forbidden Woman. However, after The Forbidden Woman wrapped, Jetta found herself prematurely fired by DeMille, who also claimed she was unprofessional and held up production. He even stated that he had finally lost patience with her spitfire temper. In actuality, what really happened, according to some film historians, is that Jetta had called DeMille out when he refused to give her her raise and salary that was guaranteed in her contract. After she called him out for this, he fired her. So she took him to court. This time, she was successful. DeMille could not provide any financial evidence that Jetta held up production and racked up costs. Furthermore, the court found that DeMille had repeatedly kept casting her in his films, and if she had been unprofessional, why hadn't he fired her earlier? Why would he have kept her on if she was so bad? With no evidence to back up his claims, DeMille lost his suit and Jetta was exonerated and given a hefty settlement. In 1928, Jetta moved to MGM to star as temperamental Simone, who Nils Astor wishes to make jealous using Marion Davies and The Cardboard Lover, and all but stole the show. While the film was another hit, Davies described Jetta as a real pill to her off-screen. Was Jetta actually being temperamental off the screen now? Despite the drama surrounding the DeMille case, D.W. Griffith cast Jetta as one of the leads in his part-talkie Lady of the Pavement in 1929, in which Jetta gives one of her best performances as Countess Diane. Diane is dumped by her fiancé, William Boyd, and she decides to teach him a lesson by making over a street girl, Lupe Velez, and passing her off as a sweet ingenue that he will surely fall for. Despite the film containing one of her best performances, sadly she found little opportunities in Hollywood after its release. While she had a stage-trained voice and could speak French and English, Jetta found herself out of work at this important transition time period in the motion picture industry. In 1930, along with Pauline Guéron, she starred in the MGM-produced French-language film The Green Ghost. That same year, she also married art director Harold Grieve. It would be 2 more years before Jetta was on the screen again in a talkie. Finally, in 1932, she starred with Will Rogers in the Fox comedy Business and Pleasure, allowing her voice to be heard by American audiences. While the film appears to have done well and even got a Photoplay award, it didn't do much for Jetta's career, and she ultimately retired after it was completed. Jetta appears to have been just fine with that, though. She joined her husband in starting a successful interior design business and enjoyed her life with him. The couple remained married for many, many years until Jetta's death from natural causes in 1985 at the age of 93. So we are left with the question, why did Jetta Goudal retire after starring in just 2 talkies? Well, I think her career was more hurt than helped by her monumental victory over Cecil B. DeMille. Even though she was pretty much exonerated and publicly declared not a diva, both the movie-going public and other film producers couldn't shake the image of her being a temperamental troublemaker, and thus her opportunities dried up. Film magazines were still discussing her quote-unquote bad attitude into the 1930s. Agatha Frymas argues, and I agree, that Jetta's career really came to an end because she was not afraid to fight for her rights as a laborer. In addition to her standing up for herself, Jetta was heavily involved with actors' equity and campaigned for actors' rights and further union privileges for them on set. While directors, producers, and even other actors called Jetta a diva, I think they really just wanted to see her as one because of her public persona, which, if you remember, was started by a studio in the first place. And if she did, in fact, have some moments of diva behavior, what major star from that time period, or any time period for that matter, didn't on occasion? People are only human after all. Jetta's persona, combined with her refusal to stay silent about her opinions, poor working conditions, and discrepancies in pay, ultimately sealed the deal. It's a real shame, as Jetta was truly one of the most talented actors on the screen in the 1930s and proved that she could play a variety of characters outside of her diva persona. On YouTube, you can find Timothy's Quest, The Green Goddess, The Road to Yesterday, White Gold, Lady of the Pavements, and hear her talk in Business and Pleasure. Look for a new Blu-ray and DVD restoration of The Cardboard Lover soon from Ben Bodell and Undercrank Productions. I can't wait to buy it myself. For her talent, for her refusal to put up with any nonsense, and for her courage in fighting and winning her battle against one of the most powerful male leaders of the Hollywood studio system, Jetta Goudal should be more well remembered today for the legend that she truly is. I must thank my sources for this episode: Anthony Slide's Silent Players, Agatha Frymas' essay, Jetta Goudal versus the Studio System, Virtual History, the Internet Broadway Database, IMDb, Find a Grave, and of course, archive.org for the digitization of Variety. Please like and follow this account if you want to learn more about the history of silent film stars whose stardom lasted only briefly in the talkies. Up next, join me as I investigate the silent to talkie career of Ralph Graves. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great rest of your day.